All right, my remodeling friends, it's Kyle Hunt with Remodelers on the Rise. You may know by now that I have a sponsor for my podcast, and that sponsor is Canvas. And Jen with Canvas and Ben with Canvas, but Jen is our guest today. Jen with Canvas, we were brainstorming and thought, you know what? Why don't we give the remodelers who are thinking about using Canvas or who are starting to use Canvas or who are even veterans of using Canvas 5 best practices for using the Canvas app? Jen, thank you so much for doing this. And what is best practice number 1?
Well, thank you for having me.
You
And
bet.
I'm glad you said this because the veterans too, there's a lot of people who've been using Canvas, even successfully, but still run across some of these things. So I'm happy to share them with you.
There we go.
And
And by the way, should I do a drum roll? Number
yes,
1. Okay, maybe
always
we'll
do
do that.
drum rolls.
All right.
Yes.
So as far as 5 best practices, number 1 is
Number 1 is prep. So you always want to make sure that you have the correct device. For all professional use cases, we recommend the LiDAR devices, the Apple LiDAR devices. So they have that embedded sensor. And there's more info everywhere else. So I'm going to skip right ahead to a little bit more prep, which is sometimes you want to remember to clean your lenses with just a soft cloth. You want to make sure that the lights are on in the room that you're scanning. If you are going to scan a space, you want it to at least have the amount of light that you would take a family photo in.
okay.
So you want to turn on the lights. You also want to remove people, pets, objects you can trip over. We have a lot of scans that have people in them, and sometimes that's cool, but a lot of times they might be moving a little too much, and that can introduce error.
Gotcha.
So that's the biggest really with prep. But
Gotcha. And there's several things in there. I mean, I got to do the drum roll before we go ahead, but what we're talking about is we have this app. It is helping you save time. But what I've noticed as more Remodelers on the Rise listeners are downloading and using the app is the first few times you use it, especially, it's like, well, I think I got the scan, or the drawing came back and the as-built came back a little off. These little details matter, and you just shared some great ones on the prep. So best practice number 2 is?
Yep, comes right out of number 1, and it's really part of prep, but it's very important. So planning your route. It sounds pretty simple, but you really want to know what you're going to capture, where you're going to start, everything that you want to get, and where you're going to end. And it sounds pretty simple, but if you're attacking just like one room, like a living room, super easy, right? You want to start in a busy corner and do a loop around the perimeter and end where you started. But this does get a little bit more complicated when you're thinking about capturing a whole home, for example, or even just maybe it's just the first floor of the house and it's about 1,500 square feet, but you've got multiple rooms. So you need to think about that. Regardless, you always want to start in a busy corner of the room, a place with like either a lot of architectural or structural details, or even just decor. That busyness, that geometry is what Canvas needs to like grab onto in order to create the model. So planning that route is important. And one of the things that I get asked most often is like, well, how big of a space can that be? And there's really not a maximum amount of space or even a maximum amount of rooms. The thing you want to avoid is scanning the same area twice in a single scan.
Okay.
So if you have a hallway and multiple rooms off of it, you might be tempted to capture this room, go into the hallway, go into this room, come back in the hallway, go over here and come back in the hallway. But now you've captured that hallway 3 times, and we don't want that to be the case. So you may need to chunk up a space. Instead of capturing that whole floor, maybe you capture it in 2 scans or 3.
Gotcha.
So planning that space is key. And I'm happy to share further details another time.
And should we leave doors open or closed?
Doors should be open.
Okay.
That helps us to determine how those rooms would be connected. And just if there's mostly, I guess, for anything where we're going to be merging, but also just for your future reference, because you might scan a room and you go, was that a closet or is that the one that went into the garage? Gotcha. So, you want to be able to look at your scan and revisit that space and get
Excellent.
as much information as possible.
Well, we're cruising right along. So 5
Yeah.
best practices when using Canvas. We hit number 1, which was prep. Number
Mhm.
2 of planning your route or
Yep.
route. I suppose either one works, but let's say route. And then what's number 3 best practice?
Yeah, number 3 is the range. So a lot of folks don't know this, but the range on your device is 5 meters. So 16 feet and change. And that's going to be whether you're using the iPad or the iPhone,
Okay.
either of those LiDAR devices. So with roughly 15 feet, you want to be between like 3 and maybe 10 to 12 feet from what you're capturing. You
Okay.
don't want to get too close because tracking can be lost. That can affect accuracy and detail. And you also don't want to be too far away because you would be out of range. So it either won't be captured correctly or at all.
And one thing you were
Um,
mentioning was even if you can see it through the device, that doesn't necessarily mean it's capturing it to the best of your ability. So I
that's right.
think what you're kind of saying there is we practiced so often over the last few years, this 6 feet of distance from each other. We need to be about 6 feet or so when we're scanning and using Canvas.
Yeah, somewhere around 6, 7 feet,
Okay.
arms. If you both had your arms spread out and you don't want to touch each other, that is about the
Okay.
right distance. That would be a
Excellent.
perfect distance from the wall that you're trying to capture.
Got it. All right. So that's number 3 is range. Best
Yep.
practice number 4 is
So this one's a little bit longer,
okay.
and I'll probably share some photos here with you so you can share those too with the audience. But
Excellent.
this one is all about the scanning technique. So the scanning motion that you're going to use to capture the majority of spaces is what we call the paint the fence method. So I'm going to kind of show you with my hands if you can see them, but
Okay.
you're going to aim your iPad or phone at the floor, capture about a foot in from the wall. You go across the floor, up the wall, and maybe a foot in on the ceiling.
Okay.
And when you do that movement, then you're going to go to the side and then come down, and then to the side and go up, and so on. And you're going to repeat that in one direction. You're going to move in one direction, in a single continuous loop around the room. You don't want to zigzag or change directions mid-scan. And you want to keep that nice painting the fence method, and be smooth and steady while you're doing it. It's also kind of like mowing a lawn. It's like, it's okay to overlap a little, you go down one row and you turn around and you come back up. Overlapping a little bit like that is expected. But what you want to try to avoid is scanning the same area more than once in a single scan, or even
Okay.
overlapping too much. Because just like with the lawn, it would take you forever to mow the lawn if you did it that way.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Kind of like my almost 16-year-old son, who I would say I'd give him a C plus now on mowing the lawn. His lines aren't very straight, but that's helpful. So the scanning motion, and what I've gathered from my remodeling clients who have been using Canvas is, you kind of learn as you go a little bit, but you just gave a good kind of overview of, look, it does matter how we are scanning. Take your time with it, all the way up, over a little bit, down, over, up, and kind of do that in a smooth way.
Yeah,
Okay.
the zigzagging is kind of what I'll see most often, but just try to remember that you're painting it, and you will see this white mesh cover the scene
Okay.
as you're capturing it. So that means you've got it and you just keep on moving. You
Got
don't
it.
have to like slow down and hold it in one place like you're waiting for it to develop. You might see little what looks like holes. You just keep on moving. Once it starts to turn white, you just keep on moving. So that pace of capture is important too, but it's really going to depend on the space and how far away you are from what you're capturing. So it's not easy to say, move this fast or this.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay.
So use
Awesome.
that white mesh as a guide.
Awesome. All right. So that was number 4 on the best practices. So we've got the prep, we've got planning your route, we've got the range, we've got the scanning motion. And then as far as the 5th best practice for Canvas, what is that one?
To reach out, to practice and reach out, to ask for help. It usually takes someone, I don't know, maybe 3, 4, 5 scans to go, okay, I get it. I get the hang of this. But we're here to help you practice, to help you share this with your teammates, make sure that everyone knows the right way to scan. As an example, we have created more support materials. And so you can sign up for a live webinar. We do them weekly. We also have webinars and videos on demand. But you can also schedule time with me or one of my colleagues, and we will do a scan review. So we'll look at what you've done and kind of give you feedback on your technique and say, you know, this is awesome, thumbs up, let's go ahead and convert it for you.
Are you nice? Are you nice on those calls, or are you heckling people and saying, how in the
very,
world,
very nice
what were
on
you
those
thinking on this scan?
I will not make fun of anyone.
Okay.
No, absolutely. But it's, you know, it's important to get that feedback too, because it is new for almost everyone. And you kind of can look at that and go, what is this? You know, just because it might look a little funky doesn't mean that it's not a good scan. It's probably just that you're not used to looking at 3D scans.
Gotcha.
The majority of the work is being done by our software. So even if something doesn't look great to you, doesn't mean it's not going to produce a great, accurate model.
Got it.
So, you know, reach out. We're happy to schedule a call, you know, and go through whatever you want to go through.
Excellent. And that's what I've noticed is, you know, I heard it maybe once or twice of, you know, I tried it and it didn't quite have the result. And like so much technology, if you do something and use something new one time and it doesn't work, and then you're like, I quit. Guess what? You're not going to integrate much technology into your life and into your business. But what I have found is that people catch on quite quick to this. And you're going to have questions. Are you really going to trust a scan that it's that accurate and that it's this and that? But what I have heard is, like, once you have done it a few times, you follow these best practices, people love Canvas. It has become an integral part of their remodeling business. It is saving them time. It is saving them money. Yes, they're a sponsor for me. I am, I suppose, paid to say those things. But you also know, if you've been following me for a long time, I'm not going to promote something that I'm not seeing that is truly valuable to my clients. And Canvas is one of those tools that I've just heard way too many of my clients say, I love it. So Jen, that is how we go through 5 best practices for using Canvas. You did a fantastic job. This is a helpful little recording. And if somebody wanted to reach out to you directly, what's the easiest way for them to do that?
So probably by email, hello@canvas.io. I see all of those emails, as does a couple of my colleagues. But if you reach out to that, again, hello@canvas.io.
Well, that like rhymes.
It does. It does.
Clever. You guys are so fun.
Yeah, so if you send that, you'll get an email back from me with my calendar link, and you can just book a time that works for you, and we'll hop on a video call just like we're doing right now, and I can share my screen and I can look at your scans.
Awesome.
And, you know, we'll
Excellent.
We'll take care of you.
Yeah, and if you haven't downloaded it yet, if you search in the Apple Store or your iPad for Canvas, look for the LiDAR option, and then when you start using it, you can use the code RISE, R-I-S-E 2022, and you get $100 off your first scan. So thank you so much, Jen.
Well, can I say one more thing, Kyle?
Yes, you may.
Even if someone uses your code, I don't want them to think like, oh, this is the only code I'm ever going to get. I am happy to share another code or whatever it takes to have somebody try it enough to really evaluate it for themselves.
Lovely.
I think that's the only way people are going to know if it works, is if they get a chance.
So you could use RISE 2023 or 2023 and a half. She'll come up with all kinds of codes. But I like that attitude of, look, we're doing this. We want you to be successful with it. We want you to start integrating this further. So thank you for that offer.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Appreciate your time. Thanks a lot.
Take care.